Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hosts Melanie Johnson and Jen Foster are the owners of Elite Online Publishing. They're both Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling authors. We're really glad you're here because this podcast was designed for you. Meet industry experts that share their secrets and strategies. Get successful results for your business in money, relationships, health, and your life. Each episode is going to inspire you to take action towards reaching your greatness.
Hey, welcome. I hope you're having a great day. It's Melanie Johnson along with my business partner, Jen Foster. How's everyone doing today? How are you doing, Jen?
I'm doing awesome. I'm excited for today's interview.
Yeah. So, there's so many baby boomers that are leaving their business, have no one to leave it to. And there's other businesses out there that you would be surprised that are for sale. And I've realized it's actually easier to buy a business than it is to start a business from scratch. So we have an expert, Jonathan J. That's what he does. He is the deal maker, and he is an expert on buying strategies to buy businesses. So I can't wait to dive into this and get some ideas on how do you set your business up to be sold and what you should be looking for when you're buying a business. Welcome, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, tell us, Jonathan, how did you get into this business of helping people buy?
Sure. So my very first business, proper business, was a publishing business. And I sold it by accident when someone approached me and they said they'd be interested in buying the business. I actually made more money the day I sold it than I'd made in the previous 2.5 years of going to the office 6 days a week. And it opened my eyes to the world of mergers and acquisitions at the small business level. I had an adult education business, and I had the opportunity to buy my main competitor, who was a multi-million-dollar revenue business themselves, as were we. And I was able to find out about the deal on Monday, find out about the opportunity, and I owned them on Friday. Wow. And as a result, I more than doubled the size of my existing business. And then a year later, I sold that new, larger combined business to a private equity firm in London. And that was the game changer. That was the moment my life changed forever. And I've been doing it ever since and been teaching other people how to do it for the last 7 years.
Wow. So what should you look for when you're looking to buy a business? I know I just had a friend who bought a business. They're in the insurance business and bought an agency, I think it was. And it turned out that their books were misrepresented. They even had, an accountant go in and they're like, well, you're not making the money we thought we did. So how do you protect yourself from that? And what should you be looking for when you're looking for that business to buy?
Okay, so the first thing to avoid is to realize that you are buying a business, you're not buying a job. And sometimes when people look at their first business acquisition, they look at very small businesses, which are really jobs in disguise. So they think they're buying a business, but they end up sitting behind a desk and operating the business day to day because the business is not big enough to support a management team to do that. So what I always say to people is go for larger businesses. On the point of your friend and that rather unfortunate situation of discovering that the business was badly represented, we never know exactly what's around the corner, but with the right legal support, the right CPA, the right financial support, we can protect against those things happening. But the critical thing when you're buying a business is that you do not invest your life savings. You don't refinance your real estate in order to buy the business, because that creates a huge amount of risk. So if something does go wrong with the business, and we never know what's around the corner. I mean, we didn't know that a pandemic was around the corner, right? No one knows exactly what's right around the corner. We need to protect ourselves. And the fastest way of protecting yourself is not to use your own cash when buying a business and fund it in a different way.
Well, that was the question I was going to ask you. I was like, well, if you don't sell something or you don't invest your life savings, how do you buy a business? And you just answered that with other people's money, right? OPM.
In effect, the business funds its own acquisition. Mm-hmm. So if the business can fund its own acquisition, how many businesses could you buy? And I suppose the answer is all of them, because there's nothing to stop you. If you're writing a check each time you buy a business, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, you're going to run out of money at some point. which is a really poor thing to do. You don't want to be doing that. So what we want to be doing is making sure that the business funds its own acquisition. There are lots of different types of finance that we can use. And typically what we do is we put together a finance package with these different types of finances, like a jigsaw puzzle, and all the pieces fit together and allows us to buy the business. Now, can we do this with every single business? No, we can't always do it with every single business, but you don't want to buy every single business. So the other thing that's absolutely critical is finding an owner who is motivated to sell. Because if it's the sort of owner who folds their arms and says, you know what, make me an offer. Yeah, if it's high enough, I might be interested in it. That's a terrible deal. What you want is an owner who typically is a retiring owner. Now, you talked about baby boomers in your introduction, a retiring owner. Unfortunately, retirement often comes with health issues, certainly with energy and stress. And if someone's been running that business for 20 years and they're now 67 years old, they just don't want to do it anymore. So they're looking for someone who can take over the business, because in the old days, people used to pass their business to their sons and their daughters, and that doesn't really happen so much now. So you're looking for someone who's highly motivated to sell, where money is not top of their list. Now, if you're going to someone who's 30 years old and selling their business, they've been watching Shark Tank. So for them, it's all about the money. Okay. Yeah. So what we want is this older, retiring owner who's made good money over the years, because we only ever buy established, profitable businesses. We want businesses that make money. We don't want businesses that make a loss. And we can buy that business by allowing it to fund its own acquisition. Maybe we pay something for the business on day one, we pay something a year later, something a year after that. And as a result, the business is self-funding. The acquisition is self-funding. And then what happens is we've got ourselves an established, profitable business that works without us. Very important, because remember, we're not buying a job, and we've done our first deal. And everyone I work with, when they've done their first deal, they say, well, why didn't I do that 10 years ago or 20 years ago? I wish I'd known that when I was 20. That's what lots of people say. And then they can go and do their second deal and their third deal. And you become quite addicted to doing these deals, and you want to do more of them.
So when you say it works without you, meaning like, is it like we're in the publishing business? Would it be other businesses that are related to what we already do, that we can take their systems and make it better with the machine we already have working? So we're not having to go in and, we know, hey, there's profitability on the back end because we can fix the things. This is an up and running business. It's making money, but we know that we already have like other things we can implement in there that will help increase profitability. Is that something that you should look for?
Yeah, it's always sensible to buy something that you understand, because otherwise you've got two learning curves happening at the same time. You've got the buyer business learning curve and the buyer business that I now have to learn all about learning curve. Yeah. So if you have a background and a type of business that you own already, then buying another similar business or something that can be bolted on as a new division of that business makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah. My former husband and I, we bought a business that was similar to ours. We had kiosks in the mall, and we bought an inline store. So that was the same product, same type of product. And it was interesting because the manager we kept the same manager at the inline stores. And I was thinking in my head, like, she could have easily bought this. Like, she just didn't know. She didn't know what we knew, which was we can use someone else's, money to give the down payment and then make payments over 5 years to the owners because they were retiring and wanting to get out of it.
Yeah.
And we used the money from the business to pay the woman, right? To pay the owner. So like, Absolutely. It wasn't like we really came up with any money, but the problem that we faced was we bought a job. So he went to work every day at that place, which was not that good.
But you did it. That's the most important
thing. Did it, yeah.
And you might wonder why, if it's so straightforward, why aren't more people buying businesses? Because they don't know how to. They think you need to be a multimillionaire to buy a business.
Well, and I think our manager of the store, she thought that's what she thought. She thought we were super wealthy and that we had just paid in full for this business. She had no idea the transaction or how to work it.
Very interesting. Yeah, absolutely. So knowledge is power.
Yes.
Yeah. And let me ask you, what should you be doing if you want to sell your business, no matter what age? I guess it might be different when you're 30 versus you're 67 and you're going to retire. what should you be doing to set your business up so you can get the most amount of money for it?
Okay. What most people do is they leave it way too late. So they wake up on New Year's Day, the 1st of January, 2024, and they say, I'm going to sell my business in 2024. And that's way too late. You should be planning it as early as possible, because every single savvy buyer is going to look at the last 3 years minimum. If you've had 3 years ago, the business was doing okay, but it wasn't amazing. 2 years ago, it wasn't really that good. This year, oh my goodness, look how profitable it is. Because everyone knows that what the seller is doing is dressing it up, cutting costs, maybe letting go some of the staff in order to increase the profits. So they think that they can sell the business off a valuation of this amazing year that's happening right now. But a savvy buyer will say, well, look, is it really sustainable? Why is it suddenly more profitable the year you are selling it? Let's go back 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, even 5 years. So the earlier you start the planning process, the better. And it's all about systemizing your business to make it easier for someone to buy it. If your business is so complicated that people can't get their heads around how you do what you do, and they immediately think it's down to your personal genius. And then if you are no longer in the business, there is no business. So you've got to make the business sustainable so you can legitimately go on holiday for 3 months and it operates without you.
Yeah.
Would you say that's the systems and processes, or is it more the employees, or how would you design that to make sure
the
that runs?
employees implementing the systems and processes? Because you can't rely upon genius employees to operate the business, because then the buyer is going to say, well, look, these people are just so incredible. What if they leave? What you want is a business that's incredible, that can be operated by lots of different people, not just the people you're employing right now.
Yeah, so any employee could be, a new employee could come in and just by your training systems that you have in place could learn. That's what we're always saying in our business. If someone comes in and they've never done this before, they can look at what's on paper and the videos we've created, and they'll know how to do it. They'll know how to upload a book and how to do that. All right, I have a couple scenarios, real life scenarios for you that I've come across. One is a friend of mine owns a magazine in the energy industry, and he's been semi-retired for the last 2 years. So hasn't been producing the magazine, having it just digital. He's got someone that's still kind of working, and none of his kids want it, and he wants to pass it on. So in my mind, he's saying, I'm not really generating income, but I have this whole Rolodex of people and advertisers and everything that you can reach out to. And we've made money with events and these different things. I don't know what the value of that is. So that's number one business. Then I'm going to throw another one at you. So in our industry, and you've been in the publishing industry, Scribe recently went out of business. Scribe is a $25 million company that just closed its shops, gave their employees not even 24 hours and said, we're done, we're stopping doing business. And they said, well, we're going to be trying to sell this. So would that be something like a small little publishing company like us would be like, oh, well, maybe we could merge something of that together. Would that even make sense for somebody small to take it? Or it's so big, could someone acquire it even though they've shut their doors and it's been out to the world that they let go all their employees? So two things.
So scenario one, before I forget number one, scenario one. So the way, if I was interested in buying that, the way I would buy that business would be to say, we will pay you a percentage of the profits or possibly the revenue generated from your assets for the next 3 years. So that, because otherwise you're right. How do you put a value on something that isn't income producing, but has been in the past, but hasn't been for personal reasons most recently? And therefore the buyer is not risking, and it's all about de-risking. Everyone wants to de-risk. If in a sort of, in a scenario where someone's got to write a check for a business that's not making any money, well, that's a huge gamble. You could just be tearing that up and throwing it out the window, right? So if I pay you a percentage of the revenue generated and you have complete visibility over the revenue generated from your assets, then I can't lose and you can only win. Because at the moment, you're not making any money from it, but now you're going to make something from it. So that's how I deal with scenario one. So scenario two, could you buy a larger business's assets? Absolutely. So businesses close for a variety of reasons, and I'm not familiar with the situation that you've described, but I have clients who are buying the assets of businesses that have closed for cents in the dollar because and we have different terminology here in the UK, but the people managing the closing of the business just want to realize some value from those assets. So yes, is it possible for a smaller business to buy a bigger business? 100%.
Okay. And then you have to leverage that, right? With, because you are going to put so much money on the line to acquire those assets and get a loan or get something to be able to do that, to purchase those. So there is some.
Well, it's a kind of it's an all depends answer, but there is definitely a possibility for paying for those assets over a period of time. It's different in different countries around the world, but in the UK, you could probably negotiate to pay for those assets over 12 months.
And when you do a deep dive, though, to find out why they closed before you would buy it, like, might not be.
Sometimes businesses, they hire too many staff, their overhead's too high, there's a drop in trading, they can't get rid of the overhead, or there was some debt in the business. And when you buy a business, we say out of administration, but you'd say out of bankruptcy. I think when you buy a business out of bankruptcy, then you leave the debt, you leave the liabilities behind. So sometimes a business can be fundamentally a good business. It's just being weighed down by debt from the past. Or maybe some sort of, they haven't been paying their taxes and the government closed them down for that reason. So there's lots of different, so absolutely, you've got to know the reason why. I mean, the worst reason why is no one wanted to buy their products and services. But if they were doing, I think you said $25 million a year, clearly there's some traction there, but typically it's the overhead that kills the business, or actually even poor cash flow. So the money's going out before the money comes in, and then the money doesn't come in, and then you got yourself a problem.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to a buyer going into an acquisition?
Know what you're doing, because you've got to get yourself educated. You've got to become knowledgeable about the process, because the seller will not know very much about selling their business. You need to know how to buy a business. So you need to control the deal and make it very much your deal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, tell us where people can find you, Jonathan.
YouTube. It's all on YouTube these days. So if you type my name, Jonathan J, into YouTube, you'll find my channel. Subscribe to the channel. 200 videos all about buying a business, dozens and dozens of interviews with my clients and the successes that they've had, the deals that they've done. It's a whole free education on the YouTube channel.
Awesome. We'll put that link up in the show notes.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks for coming today. And if you're looking to become an author, reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com and hit the author submission button. We make all of our authors bestsellers and Wall Street Journal bestsellers. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.